How you guys doing?
Hello, everybody.
So, what is tonight?
Tonight. It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday somewhere. It's Tuesday everywhere, just about. Unless you cross the time zone. Near midnight.
I think it's the third Tuesday of the month.
Most places, yes.
So that means
another Otter Creek meeting.
It's the meeting.
So what's going to happen at this meeting?
Good question. Very good question.
Let me take just a few seconds to explain to some of you who might be confused about why are we still covering the meeting. Understand this is a Tuesday video and we do Monday, Wednesday, Friday video releases. So this is a bonus video and we have the agenda and we go over the agenda and give some insight from when Madam Mayor was on the council that she can kind of talk to it a little bit from the inside out. So if the Otter Creek meeting is not something that you want to hear about, then just skip this video. We'll be back on our regular scheduled videos tomorrow. So I just wanted to put the disclaimer out there that, oh, they're talking about Otter Creek meetings again. This is a bonus video. This is a video on a Tuesday that you normally wouldn't have. So you can just skip it. For those of you that want to be entertained or want to hear about the meeting before the meeting, this is your video. So anything Otter Creek can be discussed on this video, not to be bled over into the other videos. Just to be clear.
Can I eat boom chicka pop while watching the meetings?
You can boom chicka pop, absolutely.
That was a trick question. Because not on my eating plan. But yeah, I can watch everybody else boom chicka pop.
You can watch me boom chicka pop.
Yeah, so that was a trick question.
So we'll get right into the meeting and we'll save most of the other stuff for our regular lives.
Your regularly scheduled program?
Yeah, regularly scheduled program. We're just trying to keep things, separated for people that want to see it, don't want to see it, don't get offended.
You gotta keep them separated.
That's it.
Okay, that's a whole nother song for a whole nother day.
So what do we got? We have a call to order, right?
Yes, the first thing, of course, is from the mayor, your call to order, the pledge.
And no one does the invocation anymore.
No more invocation, roll call. And then in this one, there's a public comments reminder.
Okay.
And it says, in order to be acknowledged, you must fill out a card and put it in the box. So what they're doing now, and most towns do that where they have the cards that you fill out and put what you're talking about. It's not always or it's a loose requirement in a lot of places.
Why do you think they do that? Do you think it's just so they can gauge their time?
I think it's so they can gauge their time. I think it's also so that they have the person's name and what they're talking about for when they're typing up the minutes later on.
That makes sense.
Same reason when you come up to address the council, you are supposed to state your name so that it can be documented for the minutes.
Okay.
And yeah, and I'm sure they like to know how many people are speaking so that they can see how much time they need to make necessary for the public comments section.
Gotcha.
Of course, I've been noticing that the meetings are much shorter these days, so there should be plenty of time, and there's not really that many in attendance. So there usually isn't a huge demand for public comment from what I've seen lately. So I doubt that they'd be going over in any capacity there. But that is the first thing in this agenda, is to make sure to fill out that card and put it in the box.
All right, so we've done that. What's next?
Then they'll move on to the approval of the agenda.
Oh.
And at this time, if anybody needs to add anything into the agenda, now would be the time to do so, because stuff pops up last minute all the time. You're waiting for responses on things from other people, so you can't put it in the agenda before it gets hung up for everybody. But now's the time. If you have anything you need to add it in and approve the agenda.
Okay.
Then they move on to the approval of the minutes from the October 15th meeting. So at least they only have one set of minutes to approve this go around.
So
Sometimes they get stacked.
So that should be a quick vote. So unless somebody has something that they object to, that normally is an automatic motion to approve.
Right. Since Dawn's not in the board, everything should be A-OK
Lockstep.
to move forward in that. You don't have Russell or Dawn on there to object to everything under the sun, so everything should be smooth sailing with these simple, very simple things.
So you don't see any surprises here yet?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Then moving into the old business, the contract for JPI Joseph Payne, and that is for the planning, zoning, the permitting.
Planning and zoning, permitting, yeah.
That is that person, I do believe, from Cedar Key that they were looking to hire. Mm-hmm. So I guess they'll be going over that again and maybe finally getting him hired, get a vote on that, since I don't know how long that's been going on, but
I wonder if he's going to be there.
I don't know. He hasn't ever been there before.
Yeah, so I don't know.
So, I mean, originally they were going to hire Safe Built, and they had voted on that
that was
when I was still there.
Wasn't it?
Which, yeah, that was absolutely ridiculous.
That would have bankrupt the town in just a couple months.
So, I mean, this has been going on for quite a while, so hopefully they get that done, and I believe this gentleman is a la carte.
Yeah, I was just going to say a la carte. So this is a guy, what that means basically is you pay for what you get. In other words, you're not paying a month for someone who may not even do any permitting. So then the council would be obligated to pay them. But in this case, it sounds like the person who's doing the building would be footing the bill. So that would be a la carte, pay as you need it. If you need one permit, you pay for one permit. If you need several, like you do in a campground, then you pay.
Which makes sense for, especially for that size town.
Right. There's not enough business to keep.
If you were in a big city where they're
payroll.
constantly doing stuff, then of course you'd absolutely be paying them that monthly fee because they'd be working.
Like Bronson does.
Constantly.
They have one commercial. They have one commercial planning and zoning guy who does the approvals for commercial property. One. So he's on payroll. So whatever they throw at him, he has to inspect all of them. If they have no work for him, he's just sitting there collecting a check, and that's what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even feel comfortable as that person doing that. I mean, getting paid for doing no work, it's the same difference as getting paid for a meeting as a board member that didn't happen or that you missed.
Some
Why
people
would
don't
you
have a
expect
problem
to get
with
paid?
that. They'll take the free money and they don't care.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't expect to get paid.
I wouldn't expect to get paid if I didn't do any work. So that's our moral fiber.
And in most positions I've ever held throughout my life, I've always done more volunteer work within my work week than anything else. I've always put in more off the clock stuff or more that was expected of me because that's just who I am. I don't look at things, oh, I'm just here for the money. That's not how I look at things. I'm part of a team. I'm part of a mission. I have a purpose. I have a goal. And ultimately, everything I do is for God, not just my employers. God oversees everything. So I want to make sure I'm doing the proper job.
Right.
So that's how I feel about that. You shouldn't be collecting money for work you didn't do.
Okay, so what else we got?
Moving into new business, there's the first reading of Ordinance 2024-02. And I'll read that for you. It's a little lengthy, but I'm sure the one they'll be reading at the meeting is much more lengthy.
We might not be able to hear it in the meeting, so let's hear it here.
I know, and I wish there was better hearing. I wish I could even get the meeting packet ahead of time to be able to actually read all the in-depth things, but I'm not in the town to do that. I would understand that I would have to pay for public records, which I don't have a problem with, but as of yet, I don't believe they're doing any email requests for public records.
Yeah, so
I was not able to get any public records by that means.
So I wonder if they're not falling back into some bad habits. I don't know. I'll hold my reservations about that to the end, but I do have, having read this agenda, I do have a lot of things on my head that are concerning me.
I don't know either, but I wish I could get the meeting packets, which had the ordinance and resolutions that they'll be reading, as well as the minutes and everything that have transpired. That way I could convey it better, since you can't really hear them in the meeting. Yeah. But as I said, so far I have not been able to get those items. So anyway, let's read on. It's an ordinance of the town of Otter Creek, Florida, amending the town charter and the town code of ordinances regarding elections, changing the dates of announcement of date of election, designation of seats available, and qualifying dates, adopting election procedures by ordinance, repealing prior election procedure resolutions and ordinances, and establishing an effective date, which is what they were talking about in the last meeting. So this means that they've gotten because I believe there was a few adjustments they wanted to make to it, so they didn't do the actual first reading last time. So in this one they've made whatever adjustments they needed to make, and this will be the first reading. For an ordinance, you do have to do 2 readings. They do have to put it in the newspaper. Resolutions do not require that. They're different. Resolutions and ordinances have different requirements. So
an ordinance is more permanent, right? And a resolution can be rescinded pretty easily. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, because you don't have to do the multiple readings, and you do not have to publish it in the paper. The board still has to vote on the resolutions. Okay. There's just not as much requirement. You know, they just go into the meeting, they read it, they vote on it, boom, they're done as far as the resolution. Where the ordinances has to be put in the paper, which also incurs more costs because the ads in the paper aren't very cheap either.
No, they're not.
I'm pretty sure the newspaper stays in business because of the legal requirements for different things that you have to advertise in the paper.
And to be quite honest, it's really just to check the block to get it approved, because no one reads the paper anymore.
Nobody really does, no.
So
I mean, there should be a different means in this new time with technology to get it out there to the people. Yeah. So that is really something they should be reviewing in the court system for legalities, because if what you truly desire is to get it out to the people, then you should seek a method that does that.
Yeah, the newspaper no longer does it, but the lawyers on that, they use that as a way to check the block it's done, because they know they're not going to get any resistance from it, because no one reads it.
It's their legal requirement to do so. If they didn't have to even do that, believe me, they wouldn't.
They wouldn't, yeah.
So. But, you know, again, it would be nice if they actually looked for
another medium
that the people are actually using these days, if the goal is to get it out to the people. Right. Now, if your goal is to hide it from the people and just check a box, then
put it in the paper.
You're doing it right.
There you go.
But I think everybody should know, everybody should have their input and their say-so, and everybody's voice should be heard, and everyone should be valued.
It's hard to prove intent.
As long as people are respectful.
Right.
The next thing they have, and again, going with that, I don't think there's anything out of the way written in that ordinance they're trying to put out, as they're not changing any term limits or anything like that in that. They're just changing dates and designation of seats and whatnot. So it's nothing out of the way. Designating the seats is a good thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That has to be done.
Clear up all the muddy waters of what happened in the past, which caused a lot of problems, and also incurs more costs for the town in the long run when they have to go back and forth through all this stuff with lawyers and whatnot. So that'll be helpful ordinance. And then moving on, they have the Christmas lighting contest. Oh. They did do this last year. I don't recall who the winners were or whatnot, because we had too much going on at that point if they had done it the year before, I'm pretty sure we would have won it because we had
Yeah.
decorated quite a bit.
Yeah.
But the last Christmas we
didn't.
had way too much going on, so we didn't decorate at all. So the winner will be announced for the Christmas lighting contest at the December 17th meeting.
Okay.
Which
good.
We plan on attending.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We hope to bring the next town hall meeting to you live right here on this channel. Just because we're already there for Christmas in the Creek. So we're going to hang out and do the meeting. And so if you choose to participate in watching that meeting, fine. If you don't, that's fine too. We understand reasons on both sides. But since we're already there, we're going to make it available and people can watch it if they choose.
I know a lot of people would appreciate that because there are a lot of people who do like to watch the meetings. So
that doesn't mean we're going to keep covering the meetings.
While we're there, we're going to do that. Then come January again, we will not be in Otter Creek.
Right.
And that might even be the last meeting we cover. Who knows?
We're just doing it because we're already there and it's kind of a convenience. We're going to be at the meeting, so it's no big deal to film it.
As we've said before, we're not really sure how long we will continue to cover the meetings.
And it shouldn't be a highly contested meeting. What it is we'll be able to show you how Otter Creek has progressed, and now this is what the meeting looks like. So maybe it'll, shed a little light on, oh, well, look, it's going better, or, oh, man, it's getting worse.
Again, I was hoping that by now they would have their own YouTube channel or be doing it on Facebook Live or one of the avenues, which while we're there in December, I plan on talking to Belinda about and see if there's any way that I could help facilitate that. If anybody needs any pointers or tips, if I could help them get that going in the right direction. And if they're not interested in doing that, that's also fine. I will just offer my services. If they would like to set one up, I'll be glad to help them.
I kind of feel like, and this is just me talking, I could be wrong, and I hope I am wrong. It feels like Zim and company are kind of backing up from wanting to put it online because the YouTubers have pretty much left the room, except for one, and it just seems like he's not wanting to put it out, make it publicly available. And I think that's, in the future, that could be a mistake because you're being less transparent and less people will be able to see the meeting.
What I understand, now Zim is a person who doesn't really do technology.
I get that
and
too.
As you know, with a lot of people who don't do technology, given the choice, they want to go back to the old school way of doing stuff. But unfortunately, that's not really how the world works. Once new things have been introduced, you just keep going forward and you use it, and there's really no going back to the old ways. So that might just be his resistance into
it could be,
stepping into the technology and the new times and liking old school. I mean, I like plenty of things that are old school way better. I say that all the time. However, the world as a whole is not operating in that manner. It's like we just talked about with newspapers, right? There are still people, very few, but there are still people that read the newspaper.
It's like books too. Some people prefer a book. I
like
read the tablet.
Yeah, I like reading things off a book, but if it's not what most of the world is doing, then that's just not going to work. So even though you're resistant, you're representing a very small whole. And the reason to have the channel and do all these things is for transparency, accountability. And so I think that might be part of the problem. Again, I'm just guessing at it, just like you're guessing at it.
It's my guess.
So,
I'm hoping I'm not right. I'm hoping it's more with what you're saying.
So, and technology scares a lot of people, and they just like, I don't even want to know. I don't want to learn. Ignorance is bliss type of thing.
And they don't want to add another
chore to the day.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. I think sometimes the good old days without the cell phones and everything else, you had a lot more freedom from a lot more things. And like now you're always checking where's the phone, this going on, that going on. And before you could just like kind of relax and chill and not worry about anything.
Yeah, my stepmom is kind of that way with technology. She doesn't want, she still has like a flip phone.
But I think in so many ways, I'm jealous of people like that.
Yeah, it's not that she's not capable of learning. She just doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, and I fully understand that because I do feel like in so many ways, those were better times just because you had more peace of mind because there weren't so many distractions and so much going on. But technology, again, is great used in the right ways. We just don't know how to discipline ourselves enough to put it down enough.
Yeah.
And that's our own fault. But moving on, because we've gotten off a little topic here. Next, we have the contract for engineering services, the CDBG Dewberry, which I do believe this is for the community center because there was a thing with the engineering firm and their name escapes me right now.
Yeah, Fox. Was it Fox?
Fox is the one who oversees it, but the engineering firm that was doing it...
Oh, yeah, I forget their name.
Isn't that terrible?
Yeah, I forget their name too.
So they withdrew from the project and didn't want to be involved in it anymore.
Is that because of all the YouTube and all the exposure?
Yes.
So, you know, you set a light on something and it runs away. What is that? That's usually not something good.
So they no longer wanted to be involved in that, so they withdrew. And if you remember, it took a while. That was the only one they had, and subsequently it was the one that they've all been using for many years. And I don't know if they really couldn't find somebody else or if they just kept going with who they were using all this time. I don't really know those things because I wasn't in office at that time. So, but anyhow, they found a new company, I'm assuming.
I welcome a new company because the same old, there's probably something shady there. If it looks shady, it probably is. Now, I'm not able to speak to it intelligently or put my finger on it, so I'll just leave it there. But if a company's been doing something for 30 years for a town, and then suddenly because there's cameras, they don't want to do it anymore, there's probably something behind that.
So that is for the community center. So
which we're kind of opposed to it. The town can't support it.
I personally never saw that that was something the town needed. They didn't use the little library or the things with the town hall that were already in play. You have such a small town. And I understand, you know, people look at it as free money. Well, nothing is free. Nothing is ever free.
You're going to get a free building, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, and you probably may not even agree with me. We don't always agree, by the way.
Very little do we
remember
agree.
what Zim is building. He's building an RV park. So keep always that in mind when you see things in the town hall, decisions being made. If he didn't have an RV park, would he be advocating for a community center? I don't know. But because he does have one, he sees a use for it. Do you see? And he doesn't have to pay to build it. He may help maintain it, and that's great. But do you not see something going on?
Most of the people in the town wanted the community center.
They did.
Because, as I was trying to say, they look at it as free money.
Yeah.
So if they didn't build the community center, then they have to give the money back to the state.
Yeah.
So most people look at things like they got to take it.
Yeah.
I look at it as, okay, so we didn't need it. We can give it back to the state. Now another city or town can use it for something. It can be used for something useful to somebody. So, I mean, sometimes you got to look at the bigger picture of everything and not just all about yourself or your town, but you also do live in a county, a state, a country, a world, and there's a lot more people than you. So sometimes you have to look at those things. So the way I looked at it, as the town can't afford to keep up with the building, the maintenance, all these other things with the building, to me, that's being wasteful, not being a good steward of money.
And I agree.
So that was my view on it. I voted against it, but I do believe I was the only one.
Yeah.
So I was the minority in that. I just think most people see that word free and they just grab it up no matter what it is because it was free. So, and I think that might be just something that's been ingrained in most people's heads to not think of other people and just think of yourself type of thing. So
I'll go on record to say when they do have this thing finally built, it's going to be severely underutilized. It's not going to be utilized at all. I think the only people probably using it will be maybe Zim and the people in his park. That's me going out on a limb, but let's see what happens.
Quite possibly. So anyway, it sounds like in the future we'll be hearing more about this community center. And of course, all these things take years to come.
They do. They take a long time.
Into, what's that word? Fruition.
I was thinking the same word.
So, and then the next thing we have is a resolution on procedures for public comments. So, and I've done a little research and I haven't seen too many other cities, but there are some that have this resolution for public comments. And I guess it's good to have guidelines for such, which I don't know what exactly you would be putting in there other than maybe the 3-minute time limit for people to speak, or that they have to fill out this comment card with their name before they can say anything. I don't know what else you would put in there, really.
I want to say something to this. Because if you look at the entirety of this agenda, it started with public comment. Guideline for public comment. Now we're down here and we're doing a resolution for public comment. It seems to me there's being a lot of emphasis being placed on controlling speech. If, for lack of a better way to say it. I think there needs to be more emphasis and resolutions coming before the board that have to do with enforcement. I think that's important because code enforcement. You have a guy that's going to be hired for permitting. Okay. Well, what about the people that are currently violating county law and they get away with it because they're inside the city limits? And we all know who I'm kind of referring to. But nothing's being done about it because there is no enforcement on the books. I think they need to get a resolution for code enforcement. And I think that trumps everything else. I think it trumps the dogs. I think it trumps whether someone can speak at the end of the meeting or not. I mean, I just find that a very low priority. And enforcing regulations like you can't live in a trailer, you have to have a house, is a much bigger deal. And I'm not seeing that addressed. And I think by now this should have been addressed. He's got about 4 months before we got re-elections. And if you don't win, you may not get the votes. You may not get a resolution done on enforcement because the wrong people might be in charge. This enforcement thing needs to happen sooner rather than later. That's all I'm really wanted to voice about this agenda that's so concerning to me, is that we're putting petty things forward, but we're not taking care of the bigger things. And I'll leave it like that.
So I'll be interested to hear what all this resolution has in it, because like I said, outside of a 3-minute time limit and someone filling out the comment card, I wouldn't imagine there be much else. I mean, it should be common sense. I mean, you want to lay certain things out, but maybe they need to put in there just in the black and white of it that you need to do those 2 things. You need to be orderly. You need to address the board. You need to be respectful. Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to get thrown out or whatever. I don't know what their consequences would be. However, when I was running things, I had 2 places in the meeting for public comment. Now, since I haven't been on the board, they took one of those spots out. The reason I had 2 spots was so that someone could speak on any topic that they wanted to pertaining to the town. And then a spot where it's specific to the agenda. So on here, their public comment spot says on that they can speak on any one topic, but it has to pertain to the town. And which is what your comment should be anyway. But when you have the before the meeting or the meat of the meeting comments, then someone can discuss what's going on. When you have it at the very end, all the votes have been taken.
Yeah.
All these things have occurred, and the public can't comment on what you're going to be talking about. And I don't agree with that.
Their comment won't have any influence on the vote because the vote's already happened.
I believe you have a board and you have meetings because you are the voice for the people of the town.
Yes.
But you need to hear these people's voices. Now, of course, I expect everyone to be respectful and orderly and address the board correctly. But I always encouraged people to voice their opinions and maybe bring new ideas to the table. And I'm saddened to see that there is only one spot for public comment, because whether you agree with somebody else's opinion or not, they still should be heard. Mm-hmm. They still, it's not the job of the board to maybe answer all those questions as they're brought up, because you have to do research and this and that, but it at least lets you know as a board member that these are the concerns of the people in the town. These are the things you should be working on. These are the things I need to do some research and get back to them on. So I always encourage that. So I would personally like to see more room for public comment. Again, I'm not running the town, but I do think I personally would be focusing more on getting those things done, like the dogs and the code enforcement and this and that. I think it's fine to lay out policy and tell people in an orderly way they should be acting for the meeting, because I know Russell in the past, he never wanted you to be able to speak for the public comment. And if he didn't like what you say, he would end the whole meeting. He would shut it down. And I don't like that the people are not allowed or encouraged to voice themselves and their opinions in an orderly fashion. Correct. So that saddens me. I would have laid out a policy like this for the procedure of doing it a long time ago, but I would have also, in all this time of having a good board, been throwing out some meat and potatoes here and getting some stuff done. Right.
That's all I'm trying to say.
But
I think they're going to run into problems next year if they don't get these ordinances done.
I feel, but we'll see what this procedures for the public comment says. And, I personally would encourage more speech.
I might fill out a card if you don't.
So anyway, we move on to the department reports. Under administration, they'll be talking about the status of the fiber optic in the area. That's exciting. Hopefully that's coming through. I know that area definitely needs it because the internet is horrible.
I was looking so forward to that. Now I'm not there, but I'm still, it's good.
Still great for them.
It's good for them, yeah.
So I know even in town hall, there were so many issues with the internet there on days you couldn't get any work done because it was just spinning and not doing anything, and the phone lines were horrible, and it was a hot mess. So
yeah, this is like 1 gig fiber optic speed, so it's night and day compared to what they have now. And you push a button, it's like boop, it's going to pop right up.
Yeah. Next thing they have is Florida statutes, or Florida festival.
Oh.
Festival.
It's like Florida statutes. It should be Florida statutes.
Right?
Okay.
Am I reading that right?
Festival statutes. Yes.
Okay. So I don't know what that consists of, so we'll see what that is.
I don't know.
And then an update on the W3C funds, which has to do with the Wakasasa. Remember, they were talking about Wakasasa. They were talking about putting out that money so they could get everything rolling, and they were supposed to be getting it back. So I imagine that's the update on whether they got it back yet or if there was an extension or whatnot. So
yeah, so Zim, the mayor of Otter Creek, also sits on this Wakasasa board as well. I believe he's the finance guy for the board. So if I remember right. But anyway, he sits on both boards, so he could speak to it. He would know.
So then you have the maintenance report, the public safety report, the building, zoning, and water, and it says something about the interlocal agreement, which must be about the water, possibly.
Yeah, I wonder what that is.
So, I mean, that's the only interlocal agreement I know that they have now is the water with the Wakasasa. Okay. Any other interlocal agreements having to do with building and zoning were ended by the county. Mm-hmm. Then, of course, the announcements. The children's table all says will be announced, and the next Wakasasa water and wastewater meeting will be held on Wednesday, November 20th at 1 p.m. in Bronson. That's at 660 East Hathaway Ave in Bronson.
Okay. And
then, after all that, you have the public comments way at the bottom after the meeting is essentially over.
Right.
So, and the only, like I said, the only reason I really don't like that as much is because everything's been voted on. The people don't have time to even say anything if they had any comment about anything that happened here. Well, it's all said, done, and voted on or whatever, and everything's kind of over.
The meeting is essentially over. At what point is the public comment?
So I liked having two.
Yeah.
So, and in here, members of the public have 3 minutes to speak to the council on any one topic. Note the water bill accounts will not be discussed at town hall meetings. Get with the town clerk during normal business hours.
I agree with that.
And the topic needs to pertain to the town and needs to be respectful with no foul language.
I agree with all that.
And again, the public is always encouraged to visit the town hall during regular business hours to discuss things.
Yep.
Call. So it's a good thing if the citizens that live in the town are able to do that. It's very helpful because, again, to just communicate during the meetings, there's a lot going on there too. So if you really have concerns, you should definitely get in touch with the clerk, with Belinda. If you live in the town and you have concerns, then that's what she's there for during the business hours, for you to get in touch with her. And you can do that by phone, by email. And she's a wonderful lady who's more than happy to help you.
And if you have a requirement to talk to the mayor, she can set that up.
Yep, she is the clerk. So, yep, if you live in the town and you have any concerns, it's definitely what the town hall and the clerk and everything is there for you to be able to get your questions answered. But if you don't ask, you'll never know. Like God always says, you don't have because you do not ask. Same difference in anything in life. If you don't ask for different things or question different things, you'll never know, you'll never get. So, what do you think about that?
Well, I've already voiced my concerns, and I'm just watching and hopeful that it's not going somewhere that it doesn't need to go. So I'm hoping, and the resolutions are good. I'm not against them. I just think there's some other ones that are of higher priority that
You're
need
just
to get
hoping
addressed.
right now some more meat and potatoes.
Yes, the meat and potato ordinances.
Hit the table. You got a good lawyer.
Right.
And you have all these good things. You have good board members. You have a good lawyer. You should be utilizing all of that to the fullest advantage.
And if he at all is trying to restrict speech or trying to restrict transparency, I have a concern on both of those points. I can't prove that that's what's happening. Maybe he is doing it and he's just not putting it in the agenda. To be seen. Those are my back of my head concern back here. So maybe we'll ask the board.
I'm just, I just think it's people not knowing the technology
maybe
full and well and kind of rejecting it and trying to be more of the old school way. Of course, everybody knows when I was there, I was more than transparent,
Yes.
more than forthcoming, and very encouraging of people's speech and all those things. As again, as long as everyone's being respectful, you know, we may not always agree on everything, but we can always have a conversation about things. And that's the way it should be, because there's a lot of things people can point out to each other, or, you know, you're better together.
And I hope the request for public records isn't being blown off. That's another concern in the back of my mind.
I don't think that might also just be a communication. A lot of times, a lot of people's problems are communication breakdowns, and they're just not understanding. It's like the whole lost in translation type of thing.
Yeah, we're not looking to bash the town at all. We're trying to support the town. And by giving you our viewpoints from what we understand how the town runs and should run, that's what we're trying to do, is to help support the town. And if there are any concerns, we're just voicing them and hopeful, just like you are. We no longer have any say in what the town does. But we still care.
I continue to pray for the town. Definitely still have vested interest in the town, and will care for the town. Love many people in that town, so I do want them to thrive and keep moving forward in the right direction. I would be sad to hear or see that they're moving backwards.
And so we will do a follow-up. Well, if there's... Are we planning, let me ask you, I guess, let me start over. Are we planning to do a follow-up video to the meeting? Like maybe if there's a need, I guess. Is it kind of a wait and see?
Yeah, we'll wait and see what happens at the meeting to see if there's a need to go over what happened at the meeting.
We might just do the live and then you have it already.
What are we talking about, in December? Or are you talking about this meeting?
This meeting. Yeah, that would be, I'm sorry.
You're getting me confused.
I'm getting ahead of myself, yes. The December meeting will be at, not this one. I had in my head this one, but that's not right. We'll be at the December meeting. This is the November meeting.
So if you're confused at home, I'm confused here.
Let me restate. Are we planning to do a follow-up to this meeting?
If there needs to be.
Okay, same answer.
Yeah, same answer.
All right. Now we're clear.
I do follow-ups if I feel they are needed.
Yep. So we'll see how that goes. I'll be reaching out probably to the mayor to see if there's any significant events that we may have missed. If it's being live streamed, and we may screen record it just to get the information. If it's not, then if we can't get any information, then I guess there won't be anything to talk about.
I would assume that a lot more people should be in attendance at this meeting so they can find out more information about the festival.
Yes.
But I do not know that anybody will be live streaming.
Yeah, we're not aware of that, but we'll be looking to see.
So
who knows?
Not
That's all we got. Is that all you got?
That's all I got.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for the Otter Creek Roundup, and guess we'll see you on the next video.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed having you.